Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. You may have seen the video where I got this email from Kevin and Elise Grant where they provided me the references for a visitation of God the Father and Jesus Christ at the Newell K. Whitney store, which was pretty incredible. And in this email, they provided this as a reference. This is a BYU Hawaii devotional, The Visions of Joseph Smith by Alex Baugh. And he just goes over all these different experiences. And I'm putting together this spreadsheet where I'm collecting visions, visitations, near-death experiences, dreams where you have heavenly messengers that come and visit mortals. And so I'm just kind of like, I'm going through this. I'm starting from the top, and I came across this one right here where it was very good vision and visitation, but also a very bad one. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so I checked out the reference that he provided for this story in red. You can find it a couple different places. For example, Joseph Smith's Kirtland, Eyewitness accounts by Carl R. Anderson. He's the one that we've talked about before. He's like an expert in the Kirtland period of church history. He has a couple books out, and he has a lot of information. But this was not, this isn't a primary source for anything. I use his books to find out where to look for the primary sources. And I was able to find it. Well, first I came across a couple different things. This is not it. It's the life of Levi Hancock. There's this, but it's not to be confused with this. I was able to find it on Family Search. I did a Google search and this came up. The Life of Levi Hancock. Copies from his own journal by Clara E.H. Lloyd, great-granddaughter. And we're talking about him. Okay, this is the person that wrote down this account. At the time, he was not a general authority when this happened, but he later became a president in the presidency of the 70. Okay. And and I'll just read it straight from the source. Before we do that, I just want to give you a quick update. I've updated some stuff on this spreadsheet. Now, if you go to the right, and if you'll notice row 1, starting in column N, I have all the different heavenly messengers or personages that I've come across so far in these different accounts. And I have a tally of how many accounts they show up in that I have so far. So in the number 1 spot is just nondescript angels. Sometimes it's just 1, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's a whole host of angels. So just generically speaking, I have 16 accounts that describe angels, whatever the number. And then after that, Jesus Christ with 13, Moroni with 10, God the Father with 7. I guess that's fitting, but that's probably going to change as I find more. Adam with 5, Brigham Young 5, Evil Spirits 4, Satan 4, Joseph Smith Sr. 3 times. And then you have a whole bunch of other ones. I'll just, I'll read them off really quick. Joseph Smith Sr., Abraham, Heavenly Choirs. Although I have 3 of those on another spreadsheet, so I need to figure out what I'm missing here. Jedediah M. Grant, John the Beloved, Joseph Smith Jr., after he passed away, of course. Moses, even though this isn't a personage or a messenger, pillars of fire have been seen, so I want to keep track of that. Adam's righteous posterity, Alvin Smith, the father and mother of an anonymous source of one of these accounts. An army in the sky, but in this case, I don't think it was actual beings. I think it was just like a vision, but it wasn't actual people that they were seeing, but it looked like there was an army in the sky. A Native American named Gotia, Canaan, David John, David O. McKay's father and mother, Elias, Elijah, Enoch, Enos, George A. Smith, Harold B. Lee, Heber C. Kimball, Hiram Smith, James, the apostle, Jared, the patriarch, John Taylor, John the Baptist, Jonathan Hariam Hale, Lamech, Lehi, Lorenzo Snow, Lucy Mack Smith, Mahalalel, Methuselah, Nephite warriors, Noah, Paul the apostle, Peter the apostle, Peter Mon or Magon or Maga, presidents of the church, Rudger or Rugger Clausen, Seth, the original 12 apostles, the 12 apostles at the time that the vision was had, and William E. McClellan. So there's quite a diversity of visitors or people that are seen in vision. It's really kind of stunning. And I know that I'm not done with this. And then at the very bottom, you probably already know this, but I have a running tally of the number of visions and visitations by decade. So right now, the 1830s is in the number 1 spot with a total of 17. And then total for the spreadsheet, I have 51 accounts. And honestly, I don't know how much further this is going to go, but I could see it getting into the hundreds, I think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, what number do you think we're going to get to before I'm done with this spreadsheet? Or do you think I'm ever going to be done with this spreadsheet? I don't know, but so far I have 51. So the account that we're going to read, this happened June 4th and 5th of 1831. So this was 1 year after the church was established. So this was pretty early on, okay? And this would have been the Kirtland period, and that's where this takes place. And there were a lot of people that experienced what we're about to read. This is kind of crazy. Now, one thing I want to say really quick, when you read from this talk at the BYU Hawaii Devotional, and when you read out of Carl R. Anderson's book, it just has the part that talks about the vision of God the Father in Jesus Christ, but it doesn't include everything else that happened at that same time over the course of 2 days. So that's why whenever I come across these things, I always read like the surrounding paragraphs and pages, because there's so many times that there's additional information there. And that was the case with this. So you see this paragraph right here, this little paragraph. This is what they share in the book and in Alex Baugh's talk. But we're going to read a couple pages worth because something pretty extraordinary happened. Okay, here we go. The 4th of June came, and we all met in a little string of buildings under the hill near Isaac Morley's in Kirtland, Genoa or Genoa County, Ohio. Then we all went to a schoolhouse on the hill about 1/4 of a mile ascending nearly all the way. The building was built of logs. It was filled with slab benches. Here the elders were seated, and the meeting house was open as usual. The meeting was open as usual. Joseph Smith began to speak. He said that the kingdom of Christ that he had spoke of, that was like a grain of mustard seed, was now before him, and some should see it put forth its branches, and the angels of heaven would someday come like birds to its branches, just as the Savior had said. Some of you shall live to see it come with great glory. Some of you must die for the testimony of this work. And he looked at Lyman White and said to him, you shall see the Lord and meet him near the corner of the house. As a quotation mark here, and I think this is end quote, you shall see the Lord and meet him near the corner of the house. And laid his hands upon him and blessed him with the visions of heaven. Unfortunately, there's not much follow-up to this, but I'm assuming he's talking about this meeting house that they're in that Lyman White, for some reason, would see Christ in the corner of the house or meet him there. But I don't have any further elaboration on that, unfortunately. But then, after that, Joseph Smith then stepped out on the floor and said, I now see God and Jesus Christ at his right hand. Let them kill me. I should not feel death as I am now. So I didn't know what to make of that. And when I went back and reviewed what Alex Baugh said, I think he has a pretty good thought on that. So he says, Hancock's wording suggests a vision similar to that experienced by Stephen, who saw the Father and the Son before being stoned before Jewish accusers in Acts 7. Considering the persecution Joseph was continually experiencing, he must have considered death a long-desired relief from his sufferings. Which, that's really sad, because, I mean, it's sad for anybody, but Joseph Smith was not very old. At this point, I guess I'd have to double check, but he was probably in his 30s, maybe late 20s, I'm not sure. If you want to look it up, let me know how old he was in 1831. His birthday, I think, is in December. So that's really sad. A young man, I guess we're left to speculate, but potentially like wishing he was dead, to get out of this horrible situation. Like, it's a wonderful situation, but it's also horrible being, the prophet of the restoration and having to deal with everybody's stuff, everybody's persecution. All right, continuing. Joseph put his hands on Harvey Whitlock and ordained him to the high priesthood. He turned as black as Lyman was white. Now, I think there's a pun going on here because Lyman's last name is White, Lyman White. So Harvey Whitlock turned as black as Lyman was white. And by the way, I got to see where his house was at Adamondiaman because he had a house there up on Tower Hill. It's kind of neat. But anyway, so Harvey Whitlock, he gets ordained, and then this is what happens. He turned black, and then his fingers were set like claws. So I guess maybe his fingers like all curled, not like a fist, but like claws. He went around the room and showed his hands and tried to speak. His eyes were in the shape of oval O's or zeros. Not sure. Probably O's. Oval O's. Okay, so something disturbing is going on right now. I assume when it says oval O's, maybe that's like his eyes were like really wide, or he had like a crazy look to his eyes or something like that. Feel free to elaborate if you want. Yeah, or if you know what that means, put it in the comments. Okay, so he turns black, hands like claws, can't speak, and his eyes are shaped like oval O's. Okay. Hiram Smith said, Joseph, this is not of God. Sorry, it's funny now, a couple hundred years later, but I'm sure this was terrifying if you were there. And I think Hiram's guess is pretty good. Joseph, this is not of God. Joseph said, do not speak against this. I will not. Okay, then Hiram. I will not believe, said Hiram, unless you inquire of God and he owns it. Joseph bowed his head and in a short time got up and commanded Satan to leave Harvey, laying his hands upon his head at the same time. At that very instant, an old man said to weigh 214 pounds sitting in the window, so some other person in the room, an old man, 214 pounds, sitting in the window, turned a complete somersault in the house and came his back across a bench and lay helpless. Joseph told Lyman to cast Satan out. He did. The man's name was Lyman Copley, or Copley, formerly a Quaker. The evil spirit left him, and as quick as lightning, Harvey Green fell bound and screamed like a panther. Satan was cast out of him, but immediately entered someone else. This continued all day and the greater part of the night. But to return to the meeting, okay, so all this is going on, but let's get back to business here. But, okay. But to return to the meeting, Joseph said, "Now, if you elders have sinned, it will do you no good to preach if you have not repented. Heman Bassett, you sit still. The devil wants to sift you." Then he ordained Jacob Scott and some others to the high priesthood. He came to Zebedee Coltrane, which he came up recently in another account, Zebedee Coltrane, and myself, and told us that we had another calling as high as any man in the house. I was glad for that, for I was so scared I would not stir without his liberty for all the world. I knew the things I had seen was not made. So I guess that means like he knew that people weren't just like making this up, like what he was witnessing was real. But it sounds like he was scared out of his mind to be in this situation, and who wouldn't be? I want to point out really quick, you know, we were recently talking about raising the bar in the early 2000s for missionary service. How before that point, there were a lot of missionaries that went out into the field, but they weren't even like converted themselves. They didn't have their own testimony, or maybe they had some serious sin that they hadn't repented of. And I feel like that kind of echoes back to this. If you think about what's going on here, and if I understand this correctly, okay, so the restoration was taking place, right? The priesthood was returning to the earth. It had not been on the earth since the times of Christ and the apostles. Okay, so during the great apostasy, you know, Satan had reign. We know that. We have the great and abominable church, but he has other sorts of power like this. We know that he can, you know, possess people. But now the priesthood is returning, right? And of course, Satan and his followers would be here to, you know, just harass them, maybe scare them, try and stop it. We know that Satan tried to stop the first vision when Joseph went out to pray. And so now that the priesthood is returning to the earth, I think it's kind of like a situation like, I don't know. I picture it kind of like being in a dark room and then turning on a flashlight or maybe lighting a torch, and then suddenly you see all the bugs or the critters scatter. I think that's essentially what's going on here, because Joseph Smith is ordaining these different people, and this is like the beginning of the restoration, or like toward the beginning of it. So it makes complete sense to me. He talks about the fact that you need to repent, you need to be worthy, otherwise you're not going to be affected. And maybe worst case scenario, you have something like this going on where Satan's a little bit closer than what you would like. So it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that there would be a raising of the bar. It makes a lot of sense that the church is really focused on building lots of temples right now, because we've talked about how going to the temple and entering into those covenants and receiving your initiatories and endowment, it brings additional protection. So things have not been good for Satan as time has gone by, because he's had less and less power and the church is growing. So anyway, I thought it'd be good to point that out. Okay, continuing. Joseph said that John, referring to John the Beloved, the one that's translated right now, along with the three Nephites, Joseph said that John was to tarry until Christ came. He is now with the 10 tribes, preaching to them, and when we can get ready for them, they will come. So I'm going to add this to my 10 Lost Tribes spreadsheet. Again, I think there's a different ways that this could be fulfilled. Some might think, oh, that must mean that there's a hidden group somewhere, but I'm not so sure that that's the case. I had a playlist where we talked about the three Nephites, and there's all these different accounts, and the three Nephites, it seems, they can appear in vision, they can appear in dreams, they seem to be visiting many different groups, so I don't think that it necessitates a main group or even a hidden group. But anyway, That's a subject for another video. All right, let's continue with this. Joseph Smith called Lyman White and laid his hands on his head and say what God should tell him to say. He did, and the blessing was so long I cannot write it. After this, we went down to the house and heard Harvey Whitlock say, when Hiram Smith said it was not of God, he disdained him in his heart. And when the devil was cast out, he was convinced it was Satan that was in him, and he knew it, and he knew then it. So that's kind of interesting. It's like, I don't know if that's to say like Harvey. So when Hiram was like, this is not of God, at some level, it seems like maybe Harvey was, he's like, just shut up. Like, whatever, he had like this disdain for what Hiram Smith was saying, but it seems like he knew, like on some level, he knew that what he was saying was true. Anyway, I also heard Harvey Green say that he could not describe the awful feeling he experienced while in the hands of Satan. On June the 5th, so the next day, we all assembled on the hill in a field where there was a large concourse of people collected. Lyman White spoke and gave a fine discourse. The prophet Joseph said that it's worded weird. The prophet Joseph said that from time on, the elders would have large congregations to speak to, and they must soon take their departure into the regions west. When the meeting was out, we went to Gilbert's, and Solomon sang some songs, and we talked with Brother Whitmer. I don't know if that's David Whitmer or somebody else, but Brother Whitmer, and told him what happened at the conference. He asked me if what Joseph had said was fulfilled about someone seeing the Lord. I guess Lyman White, because Joseph Smith told Lyman White that he would meet the Lord in the corner of the house, but about someone seeing the Lord. I told him I considered it so. Do you? Said he. Yes, sir, said I. Was you not there? I understood him not. So it's a little bit unclear, but when night came, Solomon and I, Wheeler Baldwin, and some others started to my father's. We walked heavily. Some said that they felt as if they would be seized by Satan. Others that they felt as though the devil and his angels were hanging about them. I kept my feelings to myself until we came to the mill pond of Mr. Ferguson's, about a half or a little over the distance we had to go that night. When we got against the pond, which was about 14 rods across and very deep, I said, let us pray. So we all kneeled down and prayed around a circle as soon as the last one got through, about 9 o'clock at night, and the moon shone brightly. A sudden bray of a jackass was heard. So I'm thinking a bray. I should have looked this up, but I think that's just the sound that a donkey makes. Bray definition. The loud, harsh cry of a donkey or mule. Okay, so that's what a bray is. Okay, so they got done praying. A sudden bray of a jackass was heard about 20 feet behind us. We looked and could see nothing, and nothing in the way. It started toward the pond, braying all the time. I had never seen one in my life, and I know that there was none about there, for I was well acquainted there. I heard how they brayed. So he's saying they. So I guess there's like multiple brays going on. The most of our company had seen them. This braying continued across the pond and ascended the high hills on the other side until it grew less and less distinct, until it got out of hearing. There, said Brother Baldwin, this proves to me that this work is true, for we all prayed for assistance. The devil ran away. And that is a really good thing. Okay, next page. We all felt that it must have been Satan, and some said as much. We then started on our way feeling much better, I'll bet, and as light as we ever felt. We told it to some, but it seemed like an idle tale to them. This took place on the 5th of June, 1831. This may appear strange to some, but God knows that I lie not. I am ready to meet it before the heavens. That night seized me, and I thought he would destroy me. I went to Solomon, and he prayed for me. However, I was not bound, but awfully tired the next day. And that's it. So a terrifying experience, but it's to be expected. Whenever you're doing anything good, whether it's the early days of the church or now, you can expect to meet opposition. Let's not forget what happened a few years later. So we just read an account from 1831. And then if we go to 1837 and sometime in either 1840 or 1841, there was another time that church leaders were attacked. So I just want to read this really quick, just do a quick review. I think it's always good to review things. So this is related by Wilford Woodruff, at the time president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This can be found in a book called The Discourses of Wilford Woodruff, pages 286 to 287. So remember, early days of the church, Satan, for the first time in a long time, is starting to lose his power. So this is to be expected. I have had the administration of angels in my day and time, though I never prayed for an angel. I have had in several instances the administration of holy messengers. And then later on, some of you have read the history of the power of the devil in England, when the fallen angels that are upon the earth made war upon Brother Kimball, Brother Hyde, Brother Fielding, and Brother Russell, who had all they could do to live in the midst of that kind of warfare. These evil spirits knocked down Brother Russell and Brother Hyde. They didn't bother Kimball, but that power fell upon him. His eyes were opened. He saw the spirits before him. He saw what kind of beings they were. They gnashed their teeth. They were mad. They wanted to destroy the lives of the brethren. These men held the priesthood. Brother Kimball held the keys of the priesthood so far as England was concerned. These spirits had not, therefore, the power to destroy them. Brother Kimball, Brother George A. Smith, and myself had a similar experience in London at a house where we were stopping. It seemed as if there were legions of spirits there. They sought our destruction, and on one occasion, after Brother Kimball had left us, these powers of darkness fell upon us to destroy our lives, and both Brother Smith and myself would have been killed, apparently, had not 3 holy messengers come into the room and filled the room with light. They were dressed in temple clothing. They laid their hands upon our heads, and we were delivered, and that power was broken so far as we were concerned. Why did the Lord send these men to us? Because we could not have lived without it. And as a general thing, angels do not administer to anybody on the earth unless it is to preserve the lives of good men, or to bring the gospel, or perform a work that men cannot do themselves. We do not particularly need the administration of angels unless we are in a condition similar to that in which Brother Kimball, Brother Smith, and I were placed, when we could not save our lives without them. So, yeah, all these actual attacks of the adversary, it comes in all sorts of in different ways. You know, maybe sometimes directly like this, in which case you should pray. You should go get a priesthood blessing. You should not have things in your house that invite evil spirits. I would take an inventory of the things that you have in your house, especially like posters for bands or movies, or, just things that are not good items, objects that aren't becoming of a Latter-day Saint. Be careful what you watch, what you listen to, because it can invite these things in. But, pray, invite the spirit into your home. stand in holy places, go to the temple, make sure you wear the temple garment, you know, if you've been to the temple. If you're dragging your feet about going to the temple and like you're of age, consider going, you know. But anyway, don't be surprised when there's opposition, but it's not the end. You can overcome it. Light is stronger than darkness. So the Lord is there to protect you. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.